Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the audio podcast. What's going on? Hope you're doing well. And first off, I have to apologize, folks. I realized that there was no show on Thursday. No, there was no audio podcast on Thursday, and I apologize about that. I've been in the midst of midterms this week, and I have some of them next week too. So I've been busy with school, and I just haven't had the time to do as much podcast stuff during the week as I obviously would like to. Or like I usually do, but, because of midterms, obviously it's important that I get that done and, score high on all of those. So, anyway, apologies since there was no, audio podcast on Thursday. Although I will, I will have one this coming week. I'm not sure about yet. That might be when I get Matt Dallas to come on the shows this coming Thursday, but at this point, no promises. So stay tuned to Twitter and to the Facebook page and all of that good, stuff. And I'll let you know when all of that's happening. I think I made up for the missing show on Thursday with today's show. Folks, I did a 2-hour, I had a 2-hour conversation with my friend Jimmy, who is from England. He is a political YouTuber from over in England, and he goes under the moniker of Hodjum or Hodjum. Not sure how he pronounces that on his channel. And he does great videos, great commentary videos, kind of just breaking down what's going on, in British politics. And he's another individual I've met who was originally a liberal, I guess you could say, and then, turned conservative during 2016. And I've met a lot of people like that, and I've had a lot of them on the show, so it's always very interesting to talk to individuals like that and find out what made them turn, and how did they go from being liberal to discovering conservatism and all of that jazz. I think that's always fascinating, and Jimmy's just a really great guy, and we cover a lot in this podcast. I realize it's 2 hours long, but we had fun. It flew by while we were recording it, and hopefully you guys will be so engrossed in the conversation that you guys will just thoroughly enjoy it, and stay tuned. So anyway, folks, I want to thank you for tuning in, and now here's a quick word about our sponsors for the program, and then we will get started with the show. So as always, thanks for listening and enjoy the podcast. Alrighty, folks, and welcome to the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, and would you look at that? We already have a troll in the chat and one dislike. So, anyway, I am your host, Sam Whitfield, back after a week-long hiatus from the podcast. I've been doing midterms exams in school, so I've been busy with that. But I'm back now officially, so glad to be back, and I'm glad to finally have a long-awaited guest on the program, Hodjum from Great Britain. I'll bring him on in a sec. First off, contact info as usual. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Still not banned from either of those platforms yet. At SamW_NGC. Hashtag Whitfield Report. Hashtag Sam's Savages. And you can follow me on mine's at Sam Whitfield, thesamwhitfield.com, and facebook.com/Whitfield Report. Subscribe to the audio podcast on iTunes. And yeah, we're ready to do this show. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Jimmy Hodjum here, if I can get the split screen working. So, let's see. So, welcome to the show, Jimmy. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Sam. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. So,
Good.
First off, I have to just kind of ask, how'd you get started doing political streaming? And you have a pretty successful YouTube channel out there, again, called Hodjum, that's growing.
Yeah,
So
well, it's successful within a hive mind mentality of a certain group of people, but it's not very successful. I mean, 500 subscribers. I mean, hey, I didn't think I'd get that far, but the way I started it out was I was off work for a while with illness, and Clown World just kept devolving and more into debauchery, and I thought, well, I have stuff to say, and no one in the real world I can talk to is going to understand what I'm talking about. So fuck it, I'll get a camera, I'll get a microphone, and I'll just see if people are interested in what I have to say. Some people are, some people aren't, but hey, that's just the way it goes. And I don't do it for any kind of views or likes or anything like that, because it's not at that stage yet. It's personally quite therapeutic, just to sort of it's like writing a journal, but instead of writing it down, you know, you kind of just speak to the camera and air out your frustrations. If people watch it, great. If people don't, I don't really care.
Yeah, so. that's kind of how I started my podcast, you know, about like 10 years ago now, 11 years ago, and it was just kind of like an audio, you know, journal for me to document, you know, then the Obama clown world that we were in here in the U.S. And then about like a year or so ago, someone was like, you know, with all these podcasters, you know, going on YouTube, you ought to move the show over to YouTube. So, you know, I still have the audio podcast, but, you know, I've noticed that, like, some of the smaller channels out there, like yours and mine, actually have better quality content, and I think that's partially because, you know, we're still growing the base, so we're not, you know, just endlessly shilling for content.
Well, I mean, for instance, look at where I am. I'm just in my bedroom. You can see all my shit over there. You're in your house. You've got a beautiful bookcase back there. But it's not, in terms of, you know, production value, really massive. And I think some people kind of appreciate that, because they go, okay, well, you're not really doing this for money. I don't make any money out of what I do on YouTube. It's just a little side thing. Like I said, it's kind of therapeutic for me to do it. I think a lot of people sometimes look at stuff like that and think, oh, you know, they're not trying to indoctrinate anybody, because they're just sat in their bedroom. They're just sort of speaking their mind kind of thing. And it's like a grassroots internet. I was going to say uprising, but I don't know whether that sounds a bit intense. But grassroots kind of. How would you describe it?
Well, I mean, kind of how I've described it. I don't know if you're familiar over there in England with Andrew Breitbart, but he's the one who originally started Breitbart News, and Andrew Breitbart originally started Breitbart News is kind of like a citizen journalism network, and ironically, like a lot of the quote unquote citizen journalists that he found went on to become like big names, like like Ben Shapiro when he met Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro was just a 20-something-year-old kid at the time, and now, I mean, whether you like or dislike Ben Shapiro, I've kind of gone back and forth on him over the years. I mean, his success, and when I interviewed him back in 2012, he admitted this to me. His success was because of Andrew and the Citizen Journal.
Yeah, I mean, his mainstream success was probably because of Breitbart, but even before that, I mean, I think at age 17, he was the youngest nationally syndicated journalist, columnist, in United States history. So, I mean, he was successful before that, but I really think since the 2016 election and clown world and political correctness have sort of entered the mainstream full force, people flock to people like Ben Shapiro. But he was already there. His time wasn't, his time in the sun wasn't when he was 17 or 20. It's now. But I mean, I think he's been successful for a long time. He's written for quite a few books. I listen to his podcast sometimes. I like his takes on quite a few things, but he's conservative. He's like a hardline conservative dude. So obviously, some principles are going to align, and you're going to agree with a lot of what he says. But there are also things like Crowder, like I just disagree with, and that's fine. But I know that he's not out to get me or you. It's a different story with the leftist journos.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I interviewed Shapiro when I was, 18 and a senior in high school. That's kind of where I made my bones. And, I like Ben, but at the same time, I mean, I heavily disagreed with him during, the Trump,
yeah. Well, he's a never Trumper, right? He still is.
He is, but he's better than, say, Bill Kristol, who, as you guys would say over in England, is just a complete and utter wanker. I mean, Bill Kristol is the guy who wrote for the Weekly Standard, and I see, people in the chat are saying that Shapiro is a warmonger. Bill Kristol is even more of like a neocon warmonger than I would say Shapiro is. Now, the interesting thing is Britain has a weird kind of Britain has like a weird situation over there, just because, I mean, it's clown world over there too, but then I see there's you, and then there's people like Tommy Robinson and also James Delingpole, who, I mean, there are
writes for Breitbart.
There are
He's
conservatives.
Good journalist.
Yeah, there are conservatives over in Great Britain, and I kind of have to ask. I mean, we've talked in private, but it seems to me like Britain, gets stereotyped as being like very liberal, as we would classify over here in the States, but then you actually talk to a lot of people from Great Britain, and I mean, it seems pretty evenly split, over there like it is here.
I mean, look at, for instance, it's a good point. Bring up the Brexit vote. It was close, but Brexit won 51%. You're talking 17 million people who want to leave the European Union. That's also 17 million people who are tired of globalism. 17 million people who are tired of being pushed around by a bureaucratic entity that nobody voted for. And it's much like the deep state, like you've got in the US. There are conservative people here, mostly working class people. There are people who are tired of the status quo, the way parliaments run, the House of Lords, which is our own mini bureaucracy. Add the EU on top of that, and it's a whole new. There's no way, whatever the working class voters want to enact, it'll happen. It's just not going to work. So we've got to dismantle things from the top down. In the past 3 years, I think if we were to do another vote, it wouldn't be 17 million people voting for Brexit. It'd be 20, 25 million people, because people have seen. I voted Remain back. It was way back in 2016 when the vote happened. I wasn't politically literate as I like to think I am now. I'm sure I've still got a lot to learn. But back in 2016, I voted Remain because it's just what people who I was surrounding myself with were doing. But I think a lot of people have seen the way that Parliament and the EU in particular, Angela Merkel, Macron in France, Jean-Claude Juncker, all these EU bigwigs, if you will, the way that they've treated the electorate in Britain and the way they've tried to scupper the will of the people, I think a lot of people have sort of been red-pilled by that. And if it was to happen again, the EU would be in for a big shock, because it'd be a lot more than 17 million, I can tell you that.
Is that, and you kind of already jumped what I was going to bring up next, but you just mentioned that you voted Remain, so you and I have talked a bit before in private, and you've said that you were kind of like, for better or worse
Bernie.
terms, a Bernie bro. So
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
I guess what made you kind of come over to the conservative movement? I'm always curious by those stories.
Yeah, well, to cut a long story short, at the time of the election which Trump won in 2016, I was living in America. I was living just south of Los Angeles in Orange County. And I was with my ex and her family, and they were very liberal people. And they really kind of got me into politics. But obviously, I went in on the wrong side. I'd always kind of had predilections to conservative viewpoints, because I'm very close with my dad, and I live with my dad now. At the time, I didn't. I was living elsewhere when I was back in England. But when I was in America, I was living with a bunch of rich liberals, essentially. So that kind of rubs off on you. And not knowing my history too well, socialism sounds great. And that's a big problem that we can get into, like in the West in general, the indoctrination of the youth.
Yeah.
But basically, the relationship I had with this person in America, after about 3 or 4 years, started to fall apart. We were going separate ways anyway. And then I moved in with my dad, and Brexit was, we were being betrayed and stuff. And even as a Remainer, I was like, this isn't right. I may have not gotten the result I wanted at the time of voting, but there's something not right here. This is say that the Remainers had won and they were treating people like this, I wouldn't be happy. So I think if you've got a good conscience, regardless of whether you're on the left or the right, you can still see what's going on. And corruption's corruption. And that was kind of what pushed me in that direction. And then, I came across people like Crowder, Gavin McInnes, Alex Jones, Rebel Media, all that kind of stuff. Paul Joseph Watson's a big one too. And you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe my old man's making a bit of sense now, because back when I was living in America, we talk about stuff and I go, oh, Dad, perhaps that's a little bit racist. And then looking back on the shit I used to say now, it's kind of like, dude, if I could go in a time machine and meet myself 4 or 5 years ago, I'd punch myself in the face. I go, shut the fuck up, man. What are you talking about? Just you wait, kind of thing. So I think it's what happens with most people. You are. There's a great quote, and I can't remember what it was. I think if a man is a man under his 20s is a socialist because he's got a good heart or whatever. A man over his 20s who's still a socialist has no brain. Something like that.
Yeah.
We all want to save the world as teenagers and young adults, and it sounds like a great pipe dream. But you need to grow out of it at some point. And joining the workforce was a big deal for me as well, because I realized that the government was taking loads of money out of my paycheck. It's actually start asking questions. Well, where is this going to? And you look at the amount of immigration that's coming into this country. You look at the amount of people on welfare that don't really need to be on welfare. They're kind of cheating the system in a way. And you realize that the money that you've earned working is going to them who don't deserve it. Then you start going, okay, you go down the rabbit hole of, well, why do we have a welfare state? Who are these people? Why is the government giving people these? Why are they shutting down factories? Why aren't people going to work? You naturally go down the route of, well, now economically contributing to the country, I should have I need some knowledge of the way the system works, and I need some knowledge of where the money that I'm giving up is going to. And when you realize where it's going to, you start to realize that it's not being spent in the best way possible. And that's a red pill within itself. And then obviously you start getting into more economically conservative points of view.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was kind of, raised. I mean, I've always been conservative. I really didn't become, more like I hate to use the word activist because I've always done a podcast like that's not the same thing as political campaigning, but one thing that really has kind of always caught my attention was just kind of this whole politically correct PC culture to where you can't really say anything with without offending someone. You have to have thick skin in order to get through this world and
I mean, well, we.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
continue. You want to go or shall I go?
Okay. I was just gonna say, like I've, obviously, I have a disability, and the audience, knows that, too. So you have to have a thicker skin. And when I started to see, my fellow high school students getting triggered because of jokes and because of, because I didn't use their, because I didn't use their correct pronouns or whatever, I was just like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So
yeah, I mean, a great example of that would be a few weeks ago. I was with my buddies, and a girl that I went to high school with for a long time showed up. And I was talking to one of my buddies about something, and she literally said, "I found your YouTube channel, Jimmy, and I think you're a white supremacist." And I was like, okay, adrenaline control. Everything's going to be fine. That's, we're playing pool or whatever. And she said, I saw a video you did on trans people. You're transphobic and you don't want gay people to have rights. And I was like, now I'm getting pretty pissed because my own brother is a homosexual. And you basically, what you're saying is, I don't believe my brother should have the same rights as I do. Do you really want to think that one through?
Yeah.
And there are so many people like that. And whatever helps them sleep at night, because they don't want to address the real issues. They don't want to address the fact that when you talk about these pronouns and hate speech and you're making it violent, which then it's a crime, right? They don't want to think about the actual legal repercussions of the decisions that they're trying to make. They just want a nice little cushy, cuddly world where no one's feelings get hurt, and it's not reality. And once you get met with reality, they can't handle it. So they call you things like white supremacist. Well, I don't have to talk to him anyway. His opinions aren't valid anyway because he's a white supremacist. Well, who says so? Well, I do. Well, you're not an authority. And the people in authority, like the SPLC and all those kind of fucking joke corporations, the people who are actually supposed to be in authority, they do just as bad of a job. So people people on, what I would call the common sense train are disenfranchised in the public space, for sure. I don't know what we're going to do about it. Thank God for Trump, I guess, but you can't take down Silicon Valley and the media all at once.
Yeah, and Silicon Valley is right now. I think, I think that's actually a bigger problem than the government at this point.
Yeah.
This
well, they've got more information than the government.
Yeah, and this is where I get into like a lot of arguments with hardcore libertarians, and this is probably at the point where a lot of my hardcore libertarian audience are shutting off the stream because they know what I'm about to say. But this is one of those few instances where I do think maybe not government intervention, but certainly like a government breakup of the monopolies that social media companies have.
Yeah, I mean, I would describe myself in some ways as a libertarian, in the sense that I'm pro legalization of most, if not all, illegal drugs.
Same
stuff like that, and live and let live kind of mentality. But I'm not. A lot of libertarians, I think, are slight anarchists in disguise.
Oh yeah.
I don't ever recollect in the term libertarian mean that you don't want any government at all. You need an institution. Let's look at the American Constitution. It's the government's job to uphold those God-given rights. You need
Right.
some government body to be able to do that. And if your First Amendment rights, which is what we're talking about when it comes to Silicon Valley, if they're being infringed, then it is the government's job, as per the Constitution, to either break them up, regulate them. Obviously, we're not big pro regulation dudes. Mostly on small businesses, but when you've got something as unprecedented, Facebook only came to fruition in it only became big in 2005, 6, 7. It's not been a very long period of time, and it's taken a long time for the government to react. But it's not taken a long time for Silicon Valley to put their mark on the political discourse worldwide. And I think Britain's not going to do it. The EU's not going to do it. Europe isn't going to do it. The only people with a solid enough foundation in terms of rights, which come from the Constitution, is America. And luckily, Facebook, Twitter, Google, all those companies are based in America. They pledge allegiance to China, but they're based in America. So the government in America should do something about it. And I think if there's anyone out there that's going to do something about it, it's got to be Trump. It has to be. Who else is going to step up to the plate?
Yeah, well, it's certainly, I mean, and it's even gotten to the point where, like, even some like Joe Rogan, who's, a more liberal, although I like Rogan's podcast, but like, even he's like starting to admit that, yeah, I mean, Silicon Valley has a problem. They're now also coming after, my podcast because I talked to so and so, and we made a crass joke. I mean, stuff like that too. And that's the other interesting thing is that like I've noticed that like a lot more comedians and whatnot too. Not even like specific like conservative comedians, but just in general are kind of all getting sick and tired of this politically correct, bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, a big one over here for that is Ricky Gervais. And I mean, he's probably got left-wing politics. But same with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle in the States he's probably further to the left than you and I. But ordinary people that weren't political, maybe mostly held left-wing views because they've not thought about it too much, are starting to wake up and go, whoa, 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 whoa. We get that all you're trying to do for trans and gay rights is just make their lives easier. We understand that. It's a noble cause. But what you're actually starting to do now is infringe on other people's rights, infringe on other people's speech. And that's not okay. You're not the moral gatekeepers to society. Even though what you believe you're doing is morally correct and above all else, it doesn't work that way. And a lot of people are sort of waking up to that. Ricky Gervais has said, well, I'm going to do he's done some really, what you could call offensive by today's standards anyway, sketches and stand-up stuff. But 10 years ago, that was the funniest thing ever. Now, oh my God, the church ladies, the left, and all these people that want to shut people down are like the church ladies of society. You can't say that and you can't say this, and you think you're cool as you're doing it because you've got dyed blue hair. You think you're an outcast. No. You're a fucking gatekeeper. You're the Stasi. You're the SS of society. You're the ones going around knocking on people's doors saying, please take this picture down, or you can't watch this channel. That's not cool. But they think they are cool.
Well, and what's
they think they're doing the right thing.
What's funny is the super, the fringe left has kind of, in a weird way merged with the super religious right, who wants to, censor, content because of decency or whatever.
I guess so. Well, I mean, it comes down to identity politics, I think.
Yeah.
The way leftist minds work is what minority group can we promote, and it's good versus evil all the time with them. It's completely black and white world. Well, white straight men are the problem. We need to champion, or whatever fucking bullshit word they come up with this week, this minority group, because they've been somehow downtrodden and they're committing suicide, and it's your fault. And it's like, well, I mean, we could get into the whole trans thing in statistics, but with the right wing, it's also like, well, we're white Christians and we believe that we're the better race, or we have the best beliefs, and this and the other. It's abhorrent either way. I don't care whether you're a communist and you believe in identity politics, or you're far right and you believe in identity politics. It's not good. Individual liberty, individual rights, regardless of your how you were born, is the way we should see things. I think that's the most fair way of conducting a society. But I'm somehow a white supremacist for holding those beliefs. That's so radical for me to say in 2019 that we end up being ostracized. And that's how bad it's gotten. It's so bad that 10 years ago, what would be a common sense statement could now land you with jail time.
Well, what's dangerous too is that the people like you and I, who are, I guess, more, where we could be considered more moderate or, centrist as people in, the subreddit we both belong to have said.
Yeah.
We're the ones being called, labeled as Nazis and white supremacists. Meanwhile, you have the Atlantic over here, like, writing profiles on Richard Spencer and being like, he's a white supremacist, but also he dresses really sharply, and admittedly looks cool, and it's like, what? Why are you doing like full, 2 or 3
They need
pages?
people. They need people to be interested in the extreme fringes of political discourse, people like Richard Spencer and the way he dresses, because they need people's eyes to be on him and to remember what he stands for, so they can also push the narrative, get the name Richard Spencer into people's heads, make him a household name, and then you can use him and go, Sam Whitfield, kind of like a Richard Spencer. And people go, oh, okay, yeah, I know where this I know where this bastard lies. Yeah, no, I know who that guy is. He's a white supremacist. That's how it starts. That's why they do it. They don't want Richard Spencer to die. They need Richard Spencer, because without people like Richard Spencer, their narrative suddenly vanishes, because there aren't that many white supremacists around. And even if there are, so what? Unless he's actually calling for violence, what are you supposed to do about it? He's allowed that opinion. I don't agree with it. But as far as a private citizen can go, there's not really much else I can do about it. It doesn't bother me. But when you start tarnishing people and saying you're just like him, or you're just like Hitler or Trump or whoever else, that's when you've got a problem, because you're actually targeting people that you know nothing about.
Yeah, it's not even that though. It's also the fact that then, people like you and I, and especially like Gavin McGinnis, has gotten actually, I think, more ostracized than actually Richard Spencer.
Oh yeah,
or
for sure,
or someone. And the other thing is this whole idea of Gavin had Richard Spencer on his old Compound show once, ergo.
So.
And it's like...
well, this is another thing as well. It's death by association.
Yeah.
Well, Gavin had Richard Spencer on his show once, therefore, he's just like Richard Spencer. It's like, no, he runs a show where he talks to people. It's like a news show. If CNN have had Richard Spencer on, right? Surely at some point. Okay, so everyone at CNN, Brian Stelter, the rest of the fucking Cook squad, those wankers over there, they all share the same opinion as Richard Spencer. Shut down because he had Richard Spencer on his show. Well, so did CNN. So did MSNBC. Are they far right? No, of course not. And they don't actually believe it themselves. But there are people fucking dumb enough out there that actually do. And do you know what? Is it really that big of a problem if those people don't like us? I don't want those kind of people, those gullible bastards, to like you and I anyway.
No, 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 I don't. But I mean, I guess the problem, then there too is these minority, squads. They're small, but they're loud, and so they'll start, tweeting on, Twitter to, get so and so deplatform. Like I always tell people that if they hear rumors, about me or something like that, to come, talk to me directly.
Personally, yeah.
And I always, try and give like people the benefit of the doubt anyway, whenever I hear things, because that's what you should do, whether it's politics or, non-politics or whatever.
Yeah. Sam Whitfield is a Nazi? Who is this from? Slate? Okay. What I would do is I'd call you or text you and go, hey, Sam, what the fuck's this about?
Yeah.
But too many people don't. You're right. Too many people don't. They just go, Sam Whitfield's a Nazi from the Slate. Oh, okay. Gospel. It's absolute gospel to them. Like, it backs up their worldview. It's perfect for them. There's another white supremacist. There's someone I can direct my anger at. And it works for them. And it sells papers and it gets clicks. And that's what it's really all about, is the revenue. CNN would not last if Trump was president. Their ratings are so bad, and they know it. And if you look at the Project Veritas stuff that's coming out, the higher ups at CNN and those kind of places know exactly what they're doing. They know that they're lying to the public, but they also know that there are people gullible enough and stupid enough out there that they'll believe it, and they'll tune in next week to Brian Stelter or Don Lemon or whoever the fuck it is. And that's the way they make their money. It's immoral on a grand scale. But what are you going to do? I don't know.
Well, the one thing, at least over here, that is also somewhat encouraging is the fact that even some Democrats over here are starting to get sick and tired of the PC bullshit over here. Most notably, Tulsi Gabbard in the last.
Well, she's had it. She got the Bernie treatment, and she knows exactly what's going on. They know that she's a formidable force, and she's not going to toe the party line if it doesn't sort of suit her agenda, which is one that I don't necessarily agree with, but a lot of her points I do agree with. I think she's the strongest candidate in the DNC right now, and it just goes to show that the DNC don't give a shit about strong candidates. They're bought and sold already. So if it's not Biden, it's going to be another. It's going to be someone like Warren, I think, who's just willing to toe the party line. She's already happy enough to lie to the public about something as big as her ancestry, so she can lie to the public about anything else. She's already on record as lying. She's not been penalized for it, really. People are still going to vote for her. People are still going to think she's the Messiah. As long as the DNC are happy with that, which they don't have any morals anyway. So Tulsi's not going to be the nominee, for sure. Even though I think she's probably the best candidate. The rest of them are a joke. They're it's a clown car of candidates. Well, I don't see Trump faltering in any way next year. He'd have to have a big fuck up in order to lose it.
Yeah, well, and I actually think in a way for us as conservatives, that's a a good thing. One of the things that was interesting is one of my friends, who lives out in Colorado. He's a bit of a blue collar guy. He's always worked in the trades, and his family has always been Democrat going back to like the 50s and 60s, because they used to be like the party of unions and kind of the blue collar working class. It's that's what you used to do, and but over the past 2 years he didn't vote. Mm-hmm. He didn't vote for Trump, but like a year after, he came to me and said, I really wish I would have the first time, and I'm going to do the second time because the Dems don't care about the working class anymore. They all care about this. All they care about is this gender, identity politics, trans thing, which no one gives
no one gives a shit about. It's the only thing they've got left. Yeah. It's the only thing they've got left. And it's interesting you say that, because the exact same things happened over here. I don't know whether you keep up with British politics too much.
I actually do.
The Labour Party here has always been the party of the working class, right? On the union side and this, that, and the other. People from the north usually vote Labour. Now it's going further down south and London, but that's because of the demographics are changing. In the past 50 years, Labour have gone from pro-working class, less taxes, to full-on communist. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party and the shadow chancellor of the Exchequer, who would be in charge of our Federal Reserve, essentially, is a full-blown Marxist communist, and he wants a communist revolution. He said it time and time again on camera. They're not afraid to say it. They are communists. And it's the same with the Democrats. You know, you're saying 50 years ago they were the party of the working class. This person voted Democrat, the dad voted Democrat. It's the same here with Labour. Now people are starting to wake up and go, no, you're not the party of the working class at all. You want to tax us more. You want to shut down our factories and our jobs and all this other stuff and start an economic revolution that would fuck everybody over except the people in power. So the DNC and the Labour Party over here and most of the what you would call the working class parties across the Western world and in Europe have done the same thing. In Germany too. They've all adopted this socialist mindset. And it's because they know that it's not going to work on the older generations. If you can indoctrinate kids young enough into socialism and the glories of Marxism and sharing and fairness and all the bullshit platitudes that they come out with, then you've got voters for life, essentially. Also welfare, which is why they want open borders, which is why the left want open borders over here, because they know that the vast majority of the population aren't buying their shit anymore. But if you can bring in disenfranchised people from the third world, regardless of the effect on the economy, regardless of the effect on housing and normal people's lives that already live here, they'll vote for you because they're coming here to vote for you because you've promised them free money. And that's what the Democrats are doing at the border. That's what the Labour Party are doing over here. And people can see through it now.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting over, from what I've, gathered, I mainly go to your channel and also over to Paul Just Watson's channel for all my stuff on Brit politics. But I remember like a few years ago, one of the videos that I saw from Paul Just Watson after Brexit happened was there was a girl like whining that the National Health Service, or whatever it's called over there, was going to close because of Brexit, and he's like, it's the National Health Service, it's not
well, I mean, what these people don't realize is that we send the European Union billions of pounds every month. And the Leave campaign, actually, their main campaign was, look, we send the European Union this massive amount of money every month. The NHS is on its arse because of immigration, by the way. We can't gloss over that. The reason the NHS is failing is because there aren't enough staff, there aren't enough nurses, there isn't enough resources, and there isn't enough money to cope with A, the birth rates of the type of people that we're bringing in, and B, the amount of those people that are coming in every year. It's unsustainable. It's logic. It's nothing to do with race. I couldn't give a shit if they were pink. But the fact of the matter is, too many people are coming in. They're having too many children, and amongst a lot of the people that are coming in, they're having first cousin marriages, and that completely fucks up the children. So they're then dependent on the state for the rest of their lives. And these kind of people that say we need to save our NHS are also saying refugees are welcome here. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. You just can't. It's not economically feasible. We're a tiny little island. We can't harbour all these people, and we certainly can't pay for the healthcare. So if you want the NHS to succeed, which it has done pretty well since the 50s when it was brought in, because we didn't have immigrants at that point. It was the people that have paid into the system can now take something out of the system, and that's the way it was. But we now have birth tourism. So, for instance, some third world person will get knocked up in Namibia or Somalia or somewhere in Africa, and they'll spend their life savings on a trip to London, to have the children there. So by proxy, let's say they have triplets or whatever, that child is now a UK citizen because they were born in the UK. By proxy, the mother then becomes a UK citizen. Jobs are good and don't have to pay for any kind of bills. They'll get welfare assistance, housing assistance, this, that, and the other. All because they decided to get knocked up in Africa and they've come here now. So it's not as black and white as we want refugees to come here and we also want to save our NHS. You've got to pick, and you've got to pick wisely because we can't afford it.
Yeah, well, I mean that was the same issue with with Hispanic immigrants coming over here and doing the same thing, and and that's what all this dreamer crap that you were hearing about for years and years and years.
Well, this is the thing where you say, oh, the dream. And then Germany and France and whoever else wants to stay in that fucking stupid union can deal with them.
Well, I found interesting that even Ringo Starr, who is and by the way, we haven't heard from Ringo in a while since he said this, but he said we had a vote for for Brexit. We voted to leave. Bob Geldof isn't going to like this, but I say let's leave.
Well, Bob Geldof is a twat. He's a bourgeois, to put it in the Marxist sense, tough upper class person who's denied the Brexit vote at every turn. He's one of those kind of people like J.K. Rowling who say we need to bring in refugees. Well, okay, you've got a £30 million estate. Why don't you put some refugees in your spare bedroom? I'm sure you've got plenty of them. Oh no. Let's put them in the working class areas of Britain, where the kids are going to get raped by the grooming gangs and the police aren't going to do anything about it. And let's put them there because it makes me sleep at night. Oh, because I'm rich, I don't have to deal with it. But because my politics is so nice, I can use it as, oh, look at me, I'm a great person. I'm a philanthropist, essentially. But it's the working class and it's the most disenfranchised people in society that have to pick up the rest of the bullshit, not them. So I don't give a fuck what anyone has to say if they regard themselves as elite in some sense, because they're not the ones who have to deal with the repercussions. We are. I live in Shitsville, northwest England, and it's 50% Muslim town now, and believe me, it affects social cohesion. It affects the whole mindset of everyone that lives in this area, and there's tensions. Believe me, there are tensions. We had riots in 2001, and it'll happen again if they keep on coming, because it's completely segregated down the middle, and now they're starting to move into more English areas, and there's white flight, and there's only a matter of time before that kind of stuff sparks up again. This is what people on the left don't think about in their gated communities. They're all for migration, but not to my house, not to my village, not to my town. And it's like, well, why don't you try taste your own fucking medicine, see how you like it, see how it affects your job, see how it affects your family, your local economy, and then get back to me. But it's all platitudinous crap. It's all, look at me, aren't I brilliant? Aren't I such a moral, upstanding person? And screw all these lower class racists or whatever they want to call them. Frankly, it's disgusting, folks. Okay.
Well, yeah, frankly, it is quite disgusting. And, one of the things...
Too many people coming in, folks. Can't sustain it. Big problem, folks.
Yeah, Jimmy, by the way, does a fascinating, he does a great Trump impression, if I do say so myself. Yeah, one of the things tying the whole immigration thing directly to this show is, one of the reasons why Jimmy was able to come on last week when we were supposed to have him is, and I could be wrong, but you essentially told me that, like, that gypsies... I'm probably going to get banned for using that word alone, but fuck it, I don't care at this point.
You would over here,
yeah. If so, again, subscribe to the audio podcast because YouTube might take this stream down, but from what you were telling me, gypsies were stealing, like, one of the cables or something from, like...
so I don't know whether you've got cable or something in America, but over here, because this is a really old house... there's a main box in the center of Oldham. I've just doxed myself, but that feeds to various street boxes that could then run to your house with the phone wire and the internet cable, like the ADSL cable. And they're really easy to get into, these boxes, and they're not hidden at all. They're just on the corner of the street. So what the gypsies do, mostly Irish, by the way, but there are a lot of Romanian gypsies too. They are pretty scummy the way they live. They don't work honestly. They don't pay taxes. The politically correct term for them, by the way, is travelers. The traveler community, because they'll steal a caravan or a trailer and they'll live in that until someone tells them to fuck off, and then they'll go 2 miles down the road and then fuck someone else's life up. So they're scumbags, essentially. They're sponging bastards. They sometimes steal the copper wire out of these exchange boxes that feed the whole street with the phone lines. And then they melt the copper down and sell it on for a complete profit, 100% profit. But it fucks everybody else up. They don't care. But yeah, that's what happened.
So you heard it here first, folks. Gypsies fucked over the Whitfield report last week.
This is what they don't understand. So they come and they fuck up our street, but they don't realize that they're putting everyone else who would watch your show. Wow, that's can you hear that outside? Jesus, cats. Oh my God. This big cat neighborhood. Maybe it was the cats. Perhaps it wasn't the gypsies. Maybe it was the cats that got into the copper wire. But yeah, they don't realize how many people they screw over when they do stuff like that.
And on behalf of Irish descendants, I have to apologize because the Irish we're just a bunch of fucking drunks. I'll admit.
Yeah.
So. Well,
I take you also need to apologize for being white, being male, and also being straight. So take your time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I apologizing for that. Someone would need to someone could put a gun to my head, and I'm not gonna apologize for being straight or male. So or white. Yeah, and also because of all of us, clown world, like you said that you had a couple of stories that you wanted to, share, some headlines that you had read.
I
hadn't heard any of this, so feel free to.
So I got a message from one of my friends. Hopefully I can open the window again now. This cat's quite harrowing, really. I got a message from one of my friends the other day saying, "Oh, Chick-fil-A are opening their first restaurant in the UK," and I was like, "Oh, Chick-fil-A, wow, that's great." This was about a week ago, and I just saw on Breitbart today, Britain's first Chick-fil-A to be shut down after LGBTQ lobbying. It lasted a week. They had a 6-month trial lease, and the Fag Squad have shut them down. Because it's offensive, because it's a Christian-led company. It's quite a long article, but essentially it says Christian-led American family restaurant chain Chick-fil-A will lose its first community. That's how much power these esoteric, just because of the way you're born and who you want to fuck, you now have power over a huge commercial decision that should have nothing to do with you, right? Should have nothing to do with you. So people are going to lose their jobs. Chick-fil-A have lost a shit ton of money just because some gays don't like it. So yeah, I thought that was pretty clown worldy.
Unfortunately, I mean, I know you've been over here to the States, so you've had In-N-Out Burger, but you guys are also you're missing out because of these faggots. So
yeah, I never went to Chick-fil-A, I don't think, when I was living in the States. Because I was in California, like In-N-Out was the place to go. Denny's and Wendy's and stuff like that, we wouldn't get those over here. I don't think the 24-hour diner business model would work over here, but I don't know. But I was like, oh, okay, good for Chick-fil-A. They've seen a market in Britain, they've gone for it, and it would have been fine. But these lobbyists have so much power just because of who they want to fuck, and it's like, okay, well, why don't you shut down every church in the country? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's probably next. Well, if your contention as a gay person or as an LGBTQ activist, whatever the fuck that even means, if your contention is that you don't like this business because they're Christian ran or their owners are conservative, then why don't you shut down every church? In fact, why don't you shut down every mosque? Because they're the ones that hate you the most. But you won't do that, will you? Because that would rock the boat way too much. And this is a problem, the sheer hypocrisy of these lobbyists. They'll shut down Chick-fil-A, but they won't actually shut down a mosque that actually wants to kill them.
Yeah, well, and that's the other problem too that we're getting to is all these groups are kind of vying for the top spot in the oppression Olympics, as Dave Rubin, calls it. But eventually, all these groups are going to start infighting with each other, and
they already are, because you can't tear down a hierarchy, if there was one to begin with, and make your own and not have someone at the top. So who is it? Is it the gays? Well, it can't be the white gays. Is it the black gays? Well, they're not. Then there's not too many of those guys. And the black community don't like gays, but we love the black community, so we can't talk about their infighting with their own gays. But mate, what about trans? Well, is it trans women or trans men that have the upper hand? Who do we hire first? And you've taken a problem that didn't really exist, because let's be honest, meritocracy is the best way forward. You've taken a system that was as fair as we could make it, and you've made it so abhorrently unfair, not just to the people you're trying to fight against, but to the people you purport to help. That's what they don't understand. And give it a few years, and this whole thing will start to fall down. Big league, folks.
Yeah, and I mean, just the fact that they made this big stink about Chick-fil-A. I mean, they've done that here in the States, or tried to, and I mean, all the family
Guaranteed, sorry to interrupt you, but guaranteed, none of these activists and these lobbyists who shut this place down have been. I don't think they've been. I don't think they've researched. I don't think they've called a corporate of Chick-fil-A to talk about their actual views. They've just read stuff on Vice. They've read stuff on BuzzFeed, on Twitter, and that's enough for them. And they can shut it down. And they have way too much political power.
Yeah,
because their intentions aren't good. They think they're good, but they're actually not.
Yeah, they've read all these they've read all these secondhand and sometimes like third-hand articles, and the reality is like when the big controversy first started with Chick-fil-A over here like a few years ago, like the family was like, look, we'll still serve gays, we'll still even hire.
Yeah, I mean it would be illegal to turn someone away, right, for their sexuality. No one's suggesting that gays aren't allowed to eat at Chick-fil-A, but what the gays are suggesting is that no one should be allowed to eat at Chick-fil-A, whether you're gay, straight, whatever you are, because we don't like it. Well, who the fuck gave you the right? This is the thing. We're too lenient on these people, just on the basis that they were born the way they are, and they fuck the people they want to fuck. That somehow gives you the right to shut down if this had gone well in Britain and they'd had opened up a bunch of restaurants, I think it would have done. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been scared enough of the prospect to shut it down in the first place. So you've completely tarnished the economy and the money that would have brought into the country just because you don't like it. Go somewhere else. You don't have to eat there. If Trump came out and said, I love McDonald's and that's my favorite restaurant, they try and shut McDonald's down. You can't win.
The funny thing is, Trump actually did come out and say that during the election. There was actually like a tweet, during the election of him, like on one of like the Trump planes, and he has like a bag of McDonald's and like a Big Mac, and I can tell you that, or maybe it might have been KFC. He could have done it with both. I can't remember, but like
he did that thing at the White House where it was one of the sports teams. I can't remember who it was. He invited them all to the White House, and he got a bunch of McDonald's and stuff like that.
And I remember that there was scuttlebutt from in some of the business blogs that some of the CEOs of McDonald's were nervous, not because of Trump, but because they knew that there was going to be the outrage mob that was going to start, blasting their corporate Twitter account, blasting, customer service, and causing a big fuss. So it's gotten out of hand.
I mean, the only people that really benefit from this kind of cancel culture are people who work in HR. Because it keeps them in a job. They loved all this shit. They love false accusations of racism, sexism, whatever it is, because that's their job to record that stuff. And a lot of them have got quotas, so they actually need to find, ill will where there is none. And that's a big problem. But I don't know whether you've heard of this Extinction Rebellion group.
I've heard of it, but I don't really know what it is. So I've heard the name, but that's about it.
It's a far left wing. They're mostly communists. They're Marxists in disguise. And James Delingpole wrote a good book called Watermelons, which basically is about this whole climate change activist mentality where you're green on the outside because you purport to want to help the environment. But you're red on the inside like a watermelon because you're a communist. And it's so true. So this Extinction Rebellion group for a couple of years now have been protesting in London and various other places in Manchester where I live, blocking people from going to work, coming back to work. And there was one the other day, what day are we on now? Saturday. I think it was on Thursday morning. There was a guy who jumped on top of the tube train in London at 8 a.m. in the morning, people trying to get to work, so that train couldn't set off. A couple of them jumped on the tube train, and a bunch of them grabbed the guy, pull him off, and beat the shit out of him, saying fuck you. This is an electric vehicle. If you're gonna tell us that you're gonna make us late for work because of your politics, we're not gonna take it anymore. So the working class are kind of revolting at this. It's happened in Australia too. People are getting sick of it in Australia. But it's basically, look at me, I care about the planet, I'm good, therefore you shouldn't go to work, or I'm gonna make you late for work. But that's a good thing because at least you know who we are now. And it's it doesn't really work that way. You're not gonna persuade anyone to your side by making their lives harder than they already are. So I think they've got it wrong completely. And they're called Extinction Rebellion. I want them to go extinct, quite frankly.
Is that the same? Because I've watched a couple of your video. I've watched a couple of your videos now. So is Extinction Rebellion? Is that the same group that was that was
with the hose pipe?
Yeah, that was
the Treasury building. Yeah. So that would be the equivalent of the Federal Reserve. They went there. They bought a fire truck, right, which is a diesel engine fire truck. Drove it through the centre of London. So how much CO2 has that fucker pumped out? To make a point about CO2 emissions and spray the Federal Reserve, essentially the Treasury building, with fake blood to make a message. And it's well, you could have walked, but then you wouldn't have had the hose. But they didn't have the hose for very long anyway. It took like 5 seconds before the guy dropped the thing because the pressure was too high or whatever, and they didn't know what they were doing. It's a complete joke. They're a joke. They've proven themselves time and time again to be a group of absolute imbeciles. And people sort of waking up, people who weren't really political are starting to go, these guys suck. These guys are wasting everybody's time. They've made me late to work twice. They've cost us X amount of money in police time, investigations. Who the fuck has to clean that fake blood off the street and off the federal building? That's got to come out of taxpayer money somehow. So they're really not doing a great job. But if you oppose them, then you're a fascist. So I guess I'm a fascist. Okay, fine. If that's what you want to call.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing here with with Antifa here too. I don't know if does Antifa have chapters in Great Britain yet?
Yes.
Oh,
so,
fuck. Yeah.
So if you've seen my channel, the intro video that I do, I went to a anti-Trump march in Manchester just to ask some people some questions. And you've got that everyone was a communist there. There was a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, pro-jihad group there and all kinds of stuff. And there was a lone kid who I think he was 13. I went up to him because he had a big Antifa flag and an Antifa shirt on, dyed blue hair. He was just stood there by himself, not saying anything, just stood there. And I thought, well, good on you for coming out at that age and whatever you believe in. I respect that. So I asked him a few questions, and I was like, you do realize that Antifa are now being considered a domestic terror group in the United States. And they've done this, they've done that. They call themselves anti-fascist, and they want to shut down people's liberties and free speech. And you're really the fascist ones. And he just goes, and I went, okay, buddy, I'm not going to bother you too much. You're only 13. But 13, I was retarded at 16. Socialist, Bernie Sanders fan. I had 3 years experience on him. I was a complete dunce, a complete retard politically. But 13, why the fuck do you give a shit about politics? Who's done this to you? And it's the schools. It's the schools and it's the education system going left wing, left wing, left wing, left wing, bullshit, Marxism, like political correctness. You're a straight white man. You need to repent. You need to apologize. And his way of doing that was holding a little Antifa sign going, I don't like hate. None of us like hate, you gimp. Yeah, well, and then the fact that I was like listening to Rush Limbaugh at 16, like, that it's pretty like based. That, I wasn't. Well, but see, it's funny because that was like a cause of concern for some people that Sam's listening to Rush Limbaugh. Ooh, keep an eye on Sam. Oof, he might be a school shooter in a few years. Fuck you. Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I started listening to Gavin, when I was in college. That was kind of when he became bigger, and that was the other thing over here was like I was taking a mass communications course, and I've told this story on the show before, but I was taking a mass communications course, and one of the things that we had to do was write different papers on different media companies, and I think I did Fox News for mine, but then some chick did actually did Vice for her, and so. Oh yeah, didn't you say to her, who founded Vice, right? And she was like, no, and you said it was Gavin McInnes. Yeah, well, I mean, she didn't know who that was. Yeah, well, I mean, she got, well, it wasn't that she didn't know who he was, so. She just left that part. Yeah, so. She mentioned the part about Roosh and the other, guy who founded Vice, but Shane. Yeah, Shane. But she completely omitted Gavin because she was like, well, he's too controversial and he's
he's also a white
So
supremacist.
this is a problem. That mindset, even though it was just for a dumb paper or whatever it was at the time, that mindset of, well, I can pick and choose what's true and what is part of history based on what I believe in. So because I don't like this person now, he didn't have anything to do with Vice. So you're book burning, essentially. You book burn.
Yeah,
You don't like it. You don't belong in that profession. You don't belong in history. You don't belong in any kind of writing if you're going to omit huge portions of history for your own political agenda. And that's the problem. People just think they can go, well, I don't like that person, so as long as I'm in control of this paper, they don't exist anymore. And it's whoever's going to read that has no real reason to not believe them. And that's a huge problem, because essentially what you're doing is, well, I get to decide what is history and what isn't. And that's a big theme with the left. They're book burners. They are fascists. They don't accept history.
they're the fascist ones. Yeah, over here in the States we call it revisionist history, and it really is, because now they're picking and choosing, like, what gets highlighted in history and what does. I mean, there was the whole impetus of the Charlottesville riots, and again, I'm not, no one is endorsing what went on with the Charlottesville riots, but the impetus for all of that was, oh, we're going to take down statues of Robert E. Lee because Robert E. Lee
we don't like it.
And it's like you yeah, not. It's like, well, first of all, it's he's a historical figure. Nothing can change that. B, none of these dunces read their Civil War history of the American Civil War, because
why should they?
If they did, they would know
they
that.
Don't need to.
If they did, they would know that Robert E. Lee actually hated slavery, but because he was, living in the Confederacy, he had to,
It goes back to what I was saying before, is that they have, their worldview is very black and white. So it's Confederate flag bad, Orange Man bad, anything right wing bad, freedom bad, freedom of speech bad. That's the way they operate. They don't think in any nuanced state whatsoever. This is the way my worldview is, and I'm not willing to change it. So anything that opposes my worldview has got to go. And it's like, fine, you don't have to watch Fox News, but don't take down a public. Because what you're doing is you're changing the scenery that's been there for a long time in history for everybody else. This is what they do. They're very selfish people in that sense. That you can choose not to like the statue. If it offends you so much, don't walk past it. Go take a different route. But don't take it down because you personally don't feel that it's appropriate. But they're so self-entitled. It's honestly frightening.
Yeah, it's frightening that, like I said before, it's frightening that the minority group is, getting so much power because...
The Chick-fil-A shit, yeah.
Because
why? Just because you're gay, you can shut down an entire restaurant? Okay.
It's just like a toddler, who's screaming. They're like, perhaps if I scream and yell and throw a temper tantrum along enough, mom and dad will give in, and that's scream, yell, claim offense. Boom. There's the 3 steps, and you can get anything you want. Yeah. It's insane. And it's starting to backfire on the left too. With specifically with YouTube too. YouTube is now they're now losing content creators, either because they're banning them or because people are just saying, fuck it, I don't want to be on this platform anymore. I'll go somewhere else.
Well, YouTube has taken a very corporate approach to the way they handle things recently. You type in, for instance, there's that really viral video that everybody knows about. It starts with like classical music, and it's like, Donald Trump will never win, and this, that, and the other. It's like 5 minutes. and it goes up and there's a crescendo and it ends in him winning, and it's got like
Yeah.
CNN going, Donald Trump will take the state of Miami, sorry, the state of Mississippi, the state of Florida, and people are saying that Donald Trump will never win. It's got millions and millions of views, and you try and type that in, and it goes, oh, the first 80 results are from CNN, MSNBC, and NPR, and all this bullshit. Their search system, their algorithm, is specifically designed to get you to watch bullshit propaganda. What I'm looking for has 17 million views. Don't tell me you don't know what I'm looking for. I typed in the exact title, but you're showing me first a video from MSNBC with 5K views? What the hell's going on? Where's that? There's got to be some amount of money involved in that. But Google are impossibly corrupt when it comes to politics. You saw that leaked thing that Breitbart did, where they're basically saying in an internal meeting how upset all the execs are and all the staff are that Trump won and how they can never let it happen again. You're not supposed to be political. You're supposed to be a search engine, but you're abusing your power. And somebody needs to break it up. And like we said before, the only person I can see who's got the balls to do it would be Donald Trump. But whether he can get anything like that through the House or the Senate, I don't know. Because you've got a bunch of corrupt Democrats that you've got to go through first.
Well, even Tulsi Gabbard, when she was on Joe Rogan's...
she's felt it firsthand, yeah. She knows what's up. But the Democrats know that she knows what's up, and they're not going to give her any airtime.
Well,
problem solved for them.
Well, not only that, but I mean, Hillary, I'm sure you saw this, although you might not have because you're not on Twitter anymore, but which we'll have to get to that in a sec. But yeah, Tulsi tweeted out yesterday that, so Hillary Clinton basically went on Twitter, went through her press office, and basically accused, Tulsi of being a Russian agent. Of questioning her, loyalty to
allegiance. Yeah.
When, like Tulsi's politics or not, Tulsi Gabbard has served in the U.S. Armed Forces. She is an actual patriot.
Yeah, she's a patriot. Yeah.
And
she's the only Democrat who you could probably call with conviction a patriot.
And
Julian Castro, no. Who else? Kamala Harris, definitely not. Elizabeth Warren, no. Pete Buttigieg, maybe. I don't know. He's kind of sensible, but I don't agree with him, but he's probably the only one there that's not willing to kowtow to identity politics, which they're upset about because he's gay. It's a clown show. And Tulsi's the only one who is sensible, in my opinion, in terms of policy and her demeanor and her attitude towards the United States and the media. The rest of them are corporate Democrats. That's why Tulsi's not been given a fair shake, because they know that she will cause problems. They know that she'll cause divisions within the Democratic Party. And didn't AOC plus 3, didn't they just come out and endorse Bernie Sanders after he's had a fucking heart attack? That tells you all you need to know. If he's having a heart attack on the campaign trail, you really think he can be president for 4 years?
Well, and also Hillary Clinton was, having heart attacks in 2016, and now they want to give her another shot at the at the White House. I don't think so. It's
no, and I think a lot of people that would have called themselves Democrats in 2016 are now not, my ex included. She was a registered Democrat, and she's not anymore because she realizes that party is just a complete villainous, wretched hive. So I think a lot of people are sort of trying to, gauge how honest these people are being, and then they're really not. The only person that's going to tell you how it is Trump, and that's why he gets the ratings, and that's why he gets the crowds. The Democrats, they're pandering too much. They're talking Spanish all the time. They let crazy transgender women get on the stage and talk complete bullshit. It's a mess. It's a complete mess.
Yeah, well, they're even letting these crazy protesters hijack their spots.
That's what I mean. You saw that black trans person saying black trans people are dying in it, and the crowd are cheering, and Don Lemon's like, oh fuck, what do I do? We didn't anticipate this. He can't say, give me the microphone back, this is not your show, because by his own standards he'd be a transphobe the next day. So they've put themselves in a very difficult position where they now have to actually live by their own standards, and they don't like it very much. It's very well sitting there behind your desk and going, you need to be more accepting of trans people. When a trans person comes up to you, Don Lemon, and shits all over your parade, you don't really know what to do about it, do you? And it's the same for the allegiance to these groups, but these groups don't give a fuck about them. Well, the Democrats don't give a fuck about the groups either, and I think people are starting to wake up to that. That it's all a ploy to get more votes.
Yeah, I mean it totally is, and I mean hopefully they get cannibalized by it. I mean I think
the left is cannibalizing itself every day. I think.
Yeah, and that
but the Democrats. Who've they got really? Who? The nominee's probably going to be Warren at this point. It's not going to be difficult for Trump to destroy her in any kind of debate, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm honestly surprised that she continued to run after her whole fiasco with the whole I'm like 175,000th whatever percentage Native American.
Yeah. Well, didn't she say that she for decades she's been getting away with saying that I'm Native American? It was on her government-issued IDs and all that stuff. And she was backed into a corner, essentially saying, well, okay, prove it. She said, okay, I'll do it. And then it turns out she wasn't. Can you imagine if it was Trump that did that? He said, I'm American Indian. And he got special benefits his whole life because of that. He got let into certain institutions because he said that he was American Indian, and then they found out that he wasn't. Do you think they wouldn't try and impeach him over that? But when it's one of their own that do it, oh no, it's fine. Just forget about it. Brush it under the carpet. And it goes to that old saying that says, well, if the left didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. And it's true, because once their candidate fucks up, it's fine. Forget about it. It's just a mistake. It's just a terrible mistake. Don't worry about it. But once Trump does something, oh my God, wow, impeach, Orange Man bad.
Well, it's like
I think people are waking up.
It's like going back to the 2016 election with Hillary and their emails. If any Republican had even been suspected of like destroying classified email,
right?
Is in the. I mean,
can you imagine?
I mean, not only would they be looking at like losing their campaign spot, they'd be looking at getting arrested. Not only that, but also probably treasonous crimes and perhaps maybe facing.
So think about the whole Russian dossier and the collusion narrative that they were pushing for 3 years. The executives at the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all those places, they knew that it was bullshit. That's how hard they peddled it, even knowing that it wasn't true. Can you imagine if they actually had something like that was true? How far they would take it? But when it happens to Hillary or when it happens to Elizabeth Warren, they don't cover it.
Yeah,
they're so impossibly biased and corrupt. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and then we get this Ukraine thing with Trump about like 2 weeks ago, and it was just a phone call from and then there was the whistleblower, which never got verified, and that was all. He
released the transcripts that exonerated him from any of that shit. But didn't it start out with Hunter Biden, and they just flipped the blame to Trump? Like,
yeah, well,
what about Hunter? What about the Bidens?
Well, so the story with the Ukraine thing that was interesting was from what I understand that the phone call was like basically the Ukraine president telling Trump, hey, you might not know, I'm paraphrasing of course obviously, but it was essentially like, so hey, I don't know if you know this, but Vice President Biden was doing deals with our last president while he was Vice President of the United States, and doing power trading. And so Trump basically said, oh, well, that's not good, why don't you help investigate him and and so then the media ran off with, well, Trump's, trying to have Ukraine investigate, like a potential, political opponent, and it became that instead of, what was Joe Biden trading with Ukraine during his time as vice president. So it became that whole fiasco. So
they will just shift the blame, but unfortunately, there's too many people out there that just buy it. They'll just buy it because it's real. Trump derangement syndrome is real. If they are given a piece of news because it reinforces their vision of the president, then they'll take it. And they don't need to listen to anybody else who has an opposing opinion because they've already got that covered. They can just call them a Nazi. They can just call them this, that, and the other. And the mainstream media know that too well. And they're dying. Their figures are dying. Their views aren't good enough to sustain themselves with honest journalism. They know that. That's why the executives are telling everybody just to run this bullshit story because they've infected the minds of so many people that they actually believe this bullshit, and that's the only thing that's keeping them going. They're the parasites of truth, essentially. They're infecting people, and it's I don't know. It can't end well for the mainstream media because more and more people are waking up. I think more and more people are getting red pilled than they are getting Trump derangement syndrome at this point. And it's the same over here with Brexit. I think more and more people are waking up to the corruption of Parliament than actually want to remain at this point. So you pick up on things like the bullshit that the mainstream media puts out, and you get to a stage where you go, actually, you're wrong about that. That's complete horseshit. So.
Yeah, that is encouraging. I think at this point our biggest battle, as like conservatism is mainly on the content creation side with all these major, companies, and also with cancel culture. I don't know if you heard of, if you've heard this story, but there's a YouTuber. Named Nicole Arbor, who she calls herself a.
I know who she is. Yeah.
Yeah. So last week she went on this comedian's podcast, Louis J. Gomez, who hosts Legion of Skanks, and she basically accused him of trying to be sexist or something, and completely set him up to get canceled. And fortunately, long story short, because of that, no one bought that, and it basically backfired in her face. So thank God for that. But it just goes to prove how desperate the left is to get people shut down who are. I mean, I wouldn't even say that that Louis J. Gomez or the Legion of Skanks are conservative. That they're like Howard Stern. They're just edgy comedians who don't mind.
There's no room for anything edgy, regardless of your politics, whether you're right wing, pro Trump or not. If you're pro free speech and you're not willing to kowtow to the politically correct left, that's all they need as ammunition to shut you down, regardless of what your actual politics are. I mean, you could be a staunch Stalinist. And you say something to upset the woke left and whoever's in power in terms of the media side of things, and that's enough for them because that's the way they do things. They can't have opposition because if enough people oppose them publicly, then ordinary people will start to wake up, and they know that, and they can't afford it. They will lose too much money, so they're quite happy to ruin other people's lives in order to save their own asses, whether they're honest about it or not.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. So, I mean, so kind of moving on from politics and whatnot, we also do a kind of a music and pop culture thing on this show as well. So, you have a pretty vast background about music and punk rock and that whole kind of subculture. Too, and specifically in one of your videos you brought up the fact that the left too is now they're trying to use punk as a way to shut down Trump. I think there was that Eve of Destruction song that that group was using to try and shut down Boris Johnson or
I
something.
thought that was funny because I used that song. It was written like in the mid to late '60s about the Vietnam War and the Cold War in particular, and the genuine threat of nuclear war back then between America and Russia. And it's like talking about the eve of destruction. We're on the eve of destruction, essentially. Pretty valid concern back then. The reason I used that song to diss the Extinction Rebellion group, which we talked about previously, was because they're telling everybody that we're on the eve of destruction, when really we're probably not. It was kind of an ironic thing. But in terms of punk, I've not been into punk that long, only a couple of years. I'm more of a classic rock and classical kind of guy.
Same
but
here.
I have a very eclectic music taste. I mean, you can see some of my records back there. I mean, I spend all my time listening to music. Most of what takes up the time when I'm making these videos is the correct song to use for the intro video. I love thinking of a topic, of a subject, and then trying to figure out what the best lyrics or the best kind of song to go along with that. And if someone recognizes it and ties those two things together, then that's really satisfying for me. But as a big musical guy, I don't know. Like I will extend intros and stuff like that just so people can listen to the music that I've chosen a little bit longer, just because I like it so much.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit harder in podcasting because of the because of the ASCAP, or whatever the music licensing is. But like I was listening to to Telegraph Road from Dire Straits, a bit earlier.
Oh yeah.
And that song is great, but that song is also about how basically socialism and big government eventually, basically shuts down the working, town of Telegraph Road or whatever that, whatever it's supposed to represent, kind of the North American working class as the government gets bigger. So.
Right.
Yeah. So.
I mean, we've spoken about Dire Straits before in the Alchemy album, the live album. I was lucky enough to see Mike Knopfler, and it was just him on his own for about half an hour before Dylan came out. Dylan wasn't too great, to be honest, but Mike Knopfler was really good. But he didn't do Sultans of Swing or anything. He did Telegraph Road and like Romeo and Juliet and that kind of stuff, which was cool. But he didn't do Sultans of Swing, unfortunately.
Well, I don't want to dox you, but one of your other aliases besides Hodjum, I know, is Bob's Dylan.
Yes,
too,
yes,
so.
on Reddit, yeah. That actually comes from way back when I was on Tumblr, if you can believe that. Yeah, I used to use that quite a lot, and that was my handle on there. So I just used it for Reddit, and then obviously became a mod on the Gavin McInnes subreddit. People were asking for a Discord. Originally I was kind of opposed to the idea. I thought no one would join it, but I made it anyway, and it's gone pretty well. And that, for your viewers, by the way, is how me and Sam actually met, was through that Discord server.
Yeah, I should explain that for the listening audience too. After I don't know, Jimmy, how many of my previous podcasts you've watched or listened to, but for the last
since I've met you, I've watched them all since, but I've not gone back. I watched the Ben Shapiro, or listened to the Ben Shapiro one, because I thought that was really interesting that you interviewed Ben. But since I met you on the Discord, I've been keeping up with it. I subscribed immediately, and I've just been watching them.
Well, thanks. So I mean, as many of the audience knows, I mean, I've kind of been on the Owen Benjamin kind of watch train lately, and he is one of those right wingers that has kind of gone a bit bonkers with the whole. Not only that, but as I mentioned before, he accused friends of mine of trying to poison So, there was that whole idea. We got my friends exonerated. So after looking in that mirror for about, after looking in that endless void for about 6 months, I went on over to Gavin's subreddit. I've always liked Gavin. Even at Gavin's most crazy and insane moments, you know, he looks sane compared to Owen. So I think the
Yeah, I like Owen. I liked him just before he sort of went off the crazy end of the cliff. In my opinion, anyway. I'm not saying that everyone has that opinion, but do you remember he did a song? It was the Leonard Cohen song "Hallelujah," and he covered it, and he changed the words to narrate what was going on with Tommy Robinson over in England. And I thought that was really cool. And I bought he did it as like a little charity thing for Tommy's appeal process. So I bought the song on iTunes. I listened to it a bunch of times, and I thought, this guy's awesome. Watched a few of his like stand-up things, and then his live stream started to get really intense. And Gavin has not said much about him or anything really, other than the fact that they're friends and he likes him and stuff. But even with Ben Shapiro's thrown Gavin under the bus, but Gavin's not the type of guy to come out and publicly say "fuck you, Ben Shapiro," unless he really fucked him over in some sense. Gavin knows that Owen's gone crazy, and Gavin knows that Ben Shapiro doesn't like him too much. But he's kind of Gavin's kind of a good. I don't know whether gatekeeper's the right word, but he's kind of like a good medium moderator for the right, because he doesn't tend to get lost in the feuds that certain people have.
Well, he's also come under quite a bit of controversy himself. I mean, I think the Proud Boys thing kind of got away from him a bit, and
for sure, yeah.
For those people who are asking me, because I know people have seen me over in the Gavin Discord. No, I am not. I'm not joining the Proud Boys. As much as I would like to buy I can't remember the shirt brand, but as much as I
Fred Perry.
Yeah, as much as I would love to buy the Fred Perry just because I think they're cool looking, I can't afford one as a college student.
Yeah.
But I mean that's an example of like similar to Owen's, Bears. I think those are both examples of, kind of like comedic, joke groups at first, kind of going off the deep end. Well, so
yeah. I think it was doomed from the start. I mean, I love the idea of the Proud Boys and what they stand for, and the West is the best, and pro-life and pro-gun, and guys need, when you look at the suicide rates of the cops in New York, they need that kind of outlet. But in clown world, that kind of group can't exist without intense scrutiny from the left, and that's. The courts are involved, the judges are involved, they're all left-wing activists, essentially, if they're not willing to take this case at face value, which they're not, which is why those dudes are facing like 15 years in jail for defending themselves. I don't think Gavin really foresaw that when he started the joke, essentially. It was a joke group.
Have you seen the porcelain documentary on Gavin?
Yeah, I watched it once when it came out, like last week or whatever. I thought it was okay. He missed a lot of stuff out. For instance, that night at the Republican Club in Manhattan, where they did the Otoyo Yamaguchi skit, and Gavin had that sword, and Ryan was playing as the socialist leader, and Gavin came and killed him with the sword. Even he, the dude that put all this time and effort into doing this documentary about Gavin, failed to say that sword was plastic. It was a joke. It was a toy. He didn't bring that up. And even though it's quite a small detail, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of not. Because people will use that and say, well, Gavin McInnes came equipped with a fucking sword. This guy's a lunatic. And it's like, well, no, it was plastic. It was for this thing that you completely glossed over, and people who aren't willing to really dig deep into what he actually meant by that. And if you're watching a documentary, then you're probably not willing to dig deep enough because you're trusting this other person to tell you the details. They probably think, well, this guy probably is a nutcase. Fuck him. Fuck the Proud Boys. He came with a sword. What did he expect? They deserve this prison time. And it's like, that annoyed me because it seemed like a small detail, but in this situation, that's kind of everything. You know, the fact that it wasn't a real sword is important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm connected with Porcelain, and Porcelain actually knows me. He's a good guy. He helped with the Owen documentary on a lot of stuff. I mean, he's the one who wrote that. And I mean, I'm always happy to talk to him and other people about details like that.
Yeah.
About this sort. I think I think it was. I personally think that the Owen documentary has kind of been his magnum opus, this year, and also he did a really good documentary on Jim Norton. But yeah, a couple of these Gavin documentaries are really weird. So some of them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd ask him, like, hey, was this a genuine mistake, or did you purposely leave that detail out? And if you did, then you're not really being an objective documentarian. You clearly have some kind of agenda if you purposely left that out.
I think in his case, it was probably like an honest mistake. Because
I'm willing to accept that, but. Yeah. He should do the right thing and at least put some kind of annotation in that video and say, look, well, actually it wasn't a real sword. It's a plastic sword. Even if it's just like subtitles or something that pops up on the screen wrong, this is a plastic sword. Yeah. But as far as I know, he's not done that.
Well, he works on like 5 or 6 documentaries at a time. I will say the stuff about Gavin's history with Vice was pretty fascinating. I didn't actually know a whole lot about that. I just got Gavin's audiobook. So the death of
the death. Yeah, I mean, I have that in paperback, but the audiobook isn't available in this country. I can't get it.
Really? That
book's pretty good.
Yeah, and also to clarify too, I mean, your one of your videos has gone pretty viral recently when you did the clip of Gavin saying we're going to jail. Basically, it was his epic rant with Milo.
Oh, yeah, that guy that called in. What was his Chris from LA?
Yeah,
he was called.
Chris from LA.
Yeah, I it's funny because I did like a little meme of a little skit that Gavin did months ago and put it on my channel. And because Ryan's in the Discord and I've spoke to Ryan before, he saw it. And then it was on Gavin's Telegram. And then they put it on Gavin's YouTube channel. And then this thing with the Chris from LA, and I put that epic music on top, he saw that too because it was in the subreddit. Then that was on Gavin's Telegram, and then they put it on their official YouTube channel. So it's kind of like I'm kind of doing free marketing for free speech TV. But that guy, Chris from LA, yeah, he was. I get where he was coming from, but he was an odd dude. He tried to join the Discord. I mean, I spoke to him personally for quite a while. I think me and the other admin spoke to him for like an hour, probably, maybe even longer. Nice enough guy, confused, not the type of person that we would accept into the Discord because he was there to basically say, this is my opinion about the Jews and this, that, and fine, you can have those opinions, but it's not really, it's just, well, you call yourselves free speech activists. It's like, we are, but we also have to operate within the confines of Reddit's policy. And the Discord, we don't really talk about politics that often in the Discord. Talk about news and current affairs and stuff like that, but it never really devolves into debates about the Jews or stuff like that. And I just don't think it would be particularly beneficial to have someone like that in the Discord server if all he wants to do, his whole worldview and his whole demeanor in life is just to convince people of this theory that he's got. So that video, yeah, it blew up a little bit, but only because it's got Gavin in it. I mean, the videos that I do, I think the most views I ever got on a commentary video was upwards of 4K, and it was because it was a big deal in Germany, that whatever I was talking about, this migrant stabbing or something like that, and the mainstream media weren't covering it, so I decided to cover it, and it got some traction. But other than that, there are a few people that watch my shit and comment and stuff like that and engage, but other than that, nothing really goes any further than 1K views.
Yeah, well, yeah, my channel is kind of, smallish too. I mean, I think the two biggest videos I've had, was when I reposted my Ben Shapiro interview. That was pretty big. That has, I think, I did not expect that got like 3,000 videos when I posted that the first time, and I was not expecting that. And then the second biggest video that I had was when I interviewed the guy who Owen accused of poisoning his kids, because that was kind of a big internet thing for a while. But yeah, I mean, I get the feeling that YouTube is starting to even start to censor smaller channels like your channel and my channel. They don't want smaller channels becoming bigger, conservative channels.
No.
So
whether I'm on some kind of radar or not, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if I am, and it also probably wouldn't surprise me if I wasn't, because I've really not made that much of an impact in any way, shape or form. Like I said at the start, I just do it because I enjoy doing it and it's kind of therapeutic. If it was to gain more traction, I'm sure I wouldn't last very long. But at that point, you've already got your core audience, and you can go over to somewhere like BitChute or something like that. But for the time being, it's they're not going to monetize me. They've decided to cut my AdSense already. Not that I was making anything anyway, but they've said you can't have it. So I must be on somebody's radar somewhere. But in terms of the way that Crowder's on the radar and Gavin's on the radar and those kind of people, I don't think that they've got the hawk eyes on me or you probably at this stage.
Maybe not. Maybe not in terms of that sense. What I'm saying is, I think they're starting to clamp down on the smaller channels so that we don't even get to that level. Is what I'm saying. So it's interesting. My whole question for YouTube, staff is, well, wouldn't you want the ad revenue share from
And if these people are really white supremacists and fascists and Nazis, as you say they are, then surely their opinion should be easy to defeat, right?
Yeah.
Because no one likes fascists. No one's really a Nazi. Very esoteric, small group of people. So you would have thought that if I'm a Nazi and you're a Nazi, you'll be able to prove us wrong very quickly, and we'll look like idiots. But they don't. They don't even give us a chance to speak in many cases. So. They're very politically motivated with what they do. Unfortunately, it's the biggest platform, so it makes the most sense to start here and go as long as you can here until you get your audience, like I said, and then if shit hits the fan, you can move somewhere else, because by that point you've already got your core audience. But you can't start. I don't think you'd be able to start on somewhere like BitChute. And get as far as you could in 6 months or however long I've been doing this than you could on YouTube, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and the problem, this is the other reason why these big tech companies need to be regulated, is because all these hardcore, free market and anarcho-capitalists are like, well, just build your own, thing. And it's like, well, okay, that's a good idea. But the problem with Gab and the problem with Minds is you're already kind of in an echo chamber of people who.
Well, that's the problem. But also they want to shut down Gab and Minds. They say, well, make your own then if you don't like the way we run things. And we go, okay, well, we'll make our own. And then they still try and shut that down, like Cloudflare or whatever it's called. what's the word? They run the site or whatever. They gatekeep it too, and they say, well, no, this website shouldn't exist. 4chan shouldn't exist, and it's like, well, where else do you want us to go? Where else can we go? Yeah. And then you wonder why shit hits the fan, and you get people who go crazy and shoot up a mosque in New Zealand. Well, this is why, because you're not allowing people to talk honestly and openly. And you push people to the darkest fringes of the internet and of society, and you ostracize them so much, you get the Joker, that premise, where people go, fuck it. I'm not going to change my point of view just because these people don't like it. And I'm not allowed to express my point of view because these people don't like it. That view's not going to go away. Your opinion's not going to change. So you've got to do something. And it's very dangerous what they're doing. And I think they know exactly what they're doing, and they want shootings to happen, and they want these crazed right-wingers to go nuts so their point of view is solidified.
Well, and what's also... It's interesting that you brought up the Joker, because the one thing that I said about all of this, reaction to kind of the Joker movie is, the media was freaking out about that, 3 weeks
I think
before.
the media wanted there to, I think the media wanted there to be a shooting just so they could say, oh, look at what we were right, we called it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said on the podcast. I was like, I said, because of all this reaction, it's almost like they want something to happen.
Of course they do.
So
it would give them an excuse to shut that movie down, and they know that movie highlights political correctness and how dangerous it is to subvert people's opinions just because you disagree with them. They know exactly what that movie was trying to portray, or what a lot of people thought it was trying to portray. So they make up this narrative, they hope it gets shot up, and then boom, they've got the scapegoat. They can cancel the movie and less people get red-pilled and more people tune into their bullshit network. Problem solved. That's exactly what's going on. Well,
the thing of it too was the Joker movie wasn't even really all that original either. I mean, even Todd Phillips, the director, was saying that he was heavily influenced by, Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. But both of those movies share similar things to Joker, and yet they're 40 years old. So it's like,
yeah. Well, you talk about Taxi Driver. You'd think De Niro would be faggot than he is now, having been in a movie like that and understanding what it's like to be ostracized, or at least play a character that's so ostracized that he does what he does in that movie. But he is just the epitome. He's the crown jewel of the Hollywood left elite, and it's kind of sad to see, really.
Yeah, it's sad because it is sad because I love movies like Goodfellas and Raging Bull, but now
Casino is another good one.
Now this new woke Bobby De Niro, I don't understand why he. I mean, obviously I do. He's a big lefty, but it's like
I don't think you can not be a lefty in Hollywood unless you want to lose work. I don't think they have a choice. And like I said before, it's not them that have to deal with the policies that the far left are enacting on the working class. So they can support left-wing ideology all they like. It's not going to affect them. So it's a win-win situation. You can virtue signal to the public and look wonderful, and you also don't have to pick up the slack of the bullshit that you're trying to enact. It's perfect.
Yeah, well, I mean, by the way, folks, for those of you listening on the podcast, Jimmy's been rolling his own cigarettes. Are those cigarettes?
I do have a vape here, but it's loud, and I didn't want to do that bullshit noise every 20 seconds. So I'm kind of smoking a little bit here, but yeah, I do roll my own. If I'm gonna smoke, I do roll my own.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't have a air filter or anything in here, so I have a smoke alarm, so I can't smoke. But I've done streams before where usually I'll be outside and I'll stream from my phone, and I'll I'll smoke a cigar or something for like half an hour and do like a Q&A.
A cigar would be nice. It's just that I've my drink is finished. I need something just to, I don't know why. It's just the way I operate. We've been doing this for the best part of 2 hours. It was inevitable that I would turn to some kind of vice.
Well, it's only it's not 5 o'clock. Yeah, otherwise I would be having a beer. I have a few empty beer bottles in here, but nothing new. But yeah,
use.
But yeah, as I was saying, yeah, Hollywood is weird because you have because like I've met a few. I mean, I haven't met any like big actors, but I know like a few. I have a few friends who are kind of like trying to break in, and they've ultimately like, yeah, like I'm a conservative still, but I can't say anything, otherwise I'm not gonna get work.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are even like a lot of actors who I suspect are conservative kind of, but
James Woods is a good example of that.
Even like Robert Downey Jr. Like a few years ago when he was promoting one of the Iron Man movies, someone asked him like, "So you're a registered Republican?" And he said, "Yeah." And Robert Downey Jr. goes, "Yeah. So what?" He's like, "I'm here to promote the movie. Like, ask me." And the journalist like keeps going, and Robert Downey Jr. is finally like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm out of here," and he just walks out of this interview.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was a registered Republican. I'm sure he gets a lot of flack for that in Hollywood.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Doesn't excuse his dress taste though. His dress code is appalling.
His dress code is. I mean, it's a weird thing of what. It's a weird cross between like Steve Jobs and I don't know what. So.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
So, it's like if you're gonna try and do Steve Jobs, do Steve Jobs. Don't do the crazy, whatever he has going on. So. So.
I mean, even Steve Jobs, like, not a particularly big fan of the way he dressed either. But then again, I'm not a fashion guru, as you can probably tell. So. Each to their own, I suppose. Well,
I'm actually a little dressed up because it was hot as heck earlier today, so I didn't want to come in sweating and wearing like a raggy t-shirt and shorts. So and yes, for those of you tuning in, this is still live. So thanks to those of you who have stayed with us for this long. So I mean, I guess, where do you see Britain's future headed? Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I mean, it's a tough question, to be honest. I think this Brexit deal that is on the table now that looks like it's going to go through is just a rehashed version of Theresa May's deal that she proposed and that was voted into oblivion 3 times. Boris has done a good job of being a strong leader for the country. And he's also done a good job at convincing people that his hands aren't tied behind his back, which they are now. I think people are waking up to. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, if a lot of people are saying that we're leaving in name only, and I am obliged to agree with them for the most part. So I think the biggest thing for us would be to regain some kind of national identity, some kind of national pride, some kind of, just in terms of education, not be so cooked and not be so ashamed of who we are. But that's a problem for the whole of the Western world. It's not just Britain. It's happening in America too. Fortunately, you've got Trump at the helm, but it's not enough in many cases. The Marxist teachers and the unions are still out there. They're still going to fucking indoctrinate your kids whether Trump's in office or not. And it's the same over here. But I think there needs to be a general election as soon as possible. People need to back either the Brexit Party and get Nigel Farage in power, or keep Boris's cabinet in power. We've got to stop the Labour Party from getting into power, because that would just be the end. I mean, right now I'm not too optimistic, but if there was to be a general election and Labour won, that would be it. In 10 years, this country would be like Venezuela.
So the mainstream media over here, I've heard them call Boris Johnson the Trump of America, but based on kind of your reaction, is that an accurate assessment, or no, not really?
Well, it's not too accurate, but he's the closest thing to Trump that we've had for a long time, a very long time, even in my lifetime. Like, the closest thing we've had to. That's what I'm saying. He's a strong. He refuses to apologize for things that he said previously that people were offended about. That's a good thing in my book. He's not willing to kowtow to the EU leaders too much, like Theresa May was. That strengthens the nation's morale. So in many ways, he is like Trump. He's not as brash as Trump, for sure, but that's probably part of the fact that we're British and we don't tend to be that, forward in what we say,
right.
To a detriment, to a fault, by the way. That's not always a good thing, to be polite all the time. So yeah, I'm not too optimistic, but I'm certainly more optimistic than I was when Theresa May was in charge. I guess we'll just have to see. I mean, I'll come back on again onto the show and after the 31st, and we'll see what happens. I can fill you in on what's going on.
Yeah, I would be very curious about that. Yeah, it always seemed to me like Nigel Farage was closer to Trump, maybe. And I mean, yeah. I don't know a whole lot about Farage other than like from what I've heard from Delling Poland, a bit from you. So I mean, do you think Farage would be a better leader, or what's your take on him?
Well, there would certainly, if Farage got in power, the Brexit Party would have the majority in Parliament, and they are more nationalistic, more patriotic, more conservative than the Conservative Party that Boris Johnson leads. So that would be a good thing. So I don't know. At this point, the negotiations are up. Time's running out. We're leaving on the 31st. They've made it illegal for us to leave with no deal, so we've been screwed over royally, really. But I can only hope that our exit from the European Union, people, the Italians and the French and the Germans in particular, the courage to vote out to and just end this whole project, because I know you've got leaders like the Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini in Italy, who is a big Eurosceptic. You've got Marine Le Pen, who nearly won the previous French election, who's a big Eurosceptic. There are Eurosceptic groups all over Europe. I mean, look at Poland and Romania and Hungary and all those countries that are refusing to kowtow to the European Union. I think their days are numbered. And I think if Britain can prove that we can leave after all this mess and we can be an independent trading nation again, it will give other European countries the confidence to do the same. And I think ultimately that would be the best thing for Europe.
Yeah, the problem that I think Britain faces is just kind of what from an outsider's perspective, is just getting kind of past the political correctness of the establishment, and just having just having kind of the balls to say,
that first. Yeah, we do have to tackle that first.
We're leaving,
but we see this attitude, like I was talking about before, with those Extinction Rebellion guys and normal working class people pulled the guy off the train, and don't condone violence, but I probably would have kicked him in the balls too if he'd made me late work. So I think the normal people sort of waking up to this woke upper middle class attitude of tolerance of everybody at the detriment of everybody else kind of attitude, and they're sick of it. And people, even if they don't like Brexit or don't agree with Brexit, they'll just vote for it just to piss off the establishment, because they've been taken advantage of for too long.
Wasn't there like another maybe this was the same incident, but with the extinction group. Wasn't there like another incident with the trains where they all like stood on the tracks or something? I seem
Yeah,
to.
there was a they stood on the tram tracks. Yeah, they blocked a tram, and also I saw one last week of a guy who glued himself to the top of a commercial jet at Heathrow Airport, so the plane couldn't take off. So he was going, when you're at your gate and you go through and you go up the ramp to the plane. He ran up the ramp, jumped on top of the plane, glued himself to the plane. And
Oh god.
being in that mindset, do you really think people are going to go, oh, do you know what? You've made me late for I'm going abroad for a funeral or a wedding or a business trip? Well, that doesn't matter because you're so awesome. Like, I really appreciate the ballsy nature that you're standing up against climate change. The thing is, dude, you bought a ticket to go on that plane. So the airline's not losing any money. They don't give a shit whether you make the flight or not. The planes are going to fly. You've given your money to an airline that's going to use a shit ton of CO2. Could they be less self-aware? I honestly don't get it. But the more and more they piss off the general public, the better, because they're starting to wake up to this nonsense.
Yeah, same here with with the cancel culture and everything else too, and obviously, yeah, it sucks that like Tulsi is getting lambasted by the DNC,
Yeah.
just like Bernie was, but at the same time, I'm
It's
kind of
kind of
like,
like a blessing in disguise, right?
yeah,
Because people are going to realize, why are you shitting all over my candidate?
I'm also
And then they'll
like,
realize how Trump supporters felt 3 years ago.
yeah, and then we'll get more you know, uh, people coming over to our side. I mean, you and I'm not going to name anyone, formally in the Discord, but I think some of the people I'm talking about. I mean, a lot of people in the Discord who I've, met besides you, a lot of them came over from the Bernie Sanders, Trump, and um, and that's kind of what fascinates me is the people who were hardcore Bernie supporters and then went that 180 and now they're Trump folks just because they're so disgruntled. So
yeah, the deplorables.
Yeah. So well, that's a badge of honor now. So anyway,
For sure.
anything else that you would like to cover? Anything I can promote or shout out? We've been going for about 2 hours
We've been going.
now.
Yeah, we've been going for 2 hours. That flew by. I'm sure probably. But I appreciate you bringing me on. And like I said, post Brexit, we should if you can manage to fit me on again, I'd be glad to come back on and we can talk about that a little bit more, because I know that there are a lot of Americans and foreigners in general who are a bit confused by it, rightly so. I mean, it's a complete nightmare. Shit changes on a dime every day with that stuff. So yeah, just thanks for finally I was able to do it, and you've been a good sport, and I appreciate you bringing me on.
Thanks, man. And I'll post a link to after the live stream is over and the video processes, however long that takes. I'll post a link to Jimmy's channel in the description, and I'll actually go ahead for the live audience and post a link to that in the chat here. So
I appreciate that, dude. Thank you.
Talking. Yeah, everyone should go over and subscribe to Jimmy, and I mean now some of you guys can also see some of the origins of the viral Gavin McGinnis video. I also have to ask, that avatar you have of the Pepe smoking, was that your original thing or did someone make that?
No, someone else
awesome.
made that. Yeah, no, I love it. Someone else made that. I came across it. I know it's not really kosher to just take shit and use it, but no one's complained so far. If they did, obviously I'd take it down. But it just, the expression on his face just kind of surmises the way I feel about Clown World. So that's why I use it.
Yeah, I know a guy who does really good logos too. If you
Yeah.
if you need a logo, guys. So yeah,
I'll have to take you up on that, because Yeah, it's not mine, so
But yeah, I mean, the whole aesthetic of your channel, I really like. I mean, sometimes you do shorter videos, but then sometimes you do like longer form
yeah,
ones. As
depending on how much bullshit I have to say at the time, how angry I am at the time.
yeah. Well, I mean, we've gone for 2 hours, so obviously you and I had a lot to say. I've gone for 4 hours on some of these
Wow.
streams. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm still not at Joe Rogan's level where I'm doing like six
No.
hour streams with Alex Jones. So, those are
We'll get there one day, dude. We'll get there.
what oh, that is one thing I am curious about. Like, so what do people in Britain like think of Alex Jones? Like, even in some of these other personalities, even
Um, it's one of those things. If you ask someone on the street and you say, "What do you think about Alex Jones?" You say, "I don't know who that is." You show them a picture and they go, "Oh, I know who that is. That crazy dude who believes in aliens and they're turning the friggin' frogs gay and all that shit." They'll laugh at that because of the memes that have gone viral. They don't actually know what he stands for or know what he actually says. I'm yet to meet someone who, other than some close friends who are also on the Trump train, which is very small, unfortunately. Other than those guys, no one, as far as I can tell, knows who he is. And if they do, they probably think he's a nutcase.
well, even amongst like the even amongst kind of the conservative Brits, like you know, I mean, some of the I mean, some people have to think that Jones's style is a bit, you know, different for sure.
Yeah, I think he's incredibly entertaining. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah, I think he's hilarious. I recently found an interview where he interviewed Charlie Sheen a few years ago. So
Oh, really? I've not seen that.
yeah, I'll have to send it to you. He basically during Charlie Sheen's whole Tiger
Meltdown.
blood phase, he went on Alex's show and they started talking Apocalypse Now and hernias and all this crazy stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, he's a force for good, essentially. I think he's got great intentions. He's a freedom lover. He loves America. He loves free speech. So what? He's a little bit crazy. Good.
we all are. I've become a bit
It's
crazy.
true. It's
Also,
true.
I'm looking at your channel page here, and I see that you've got the Blue Oyster Cult
Oh,
header
I'm
here.
glad. Finally, someone's actually recognized. Never recognized where it came from, but yeah, it's a Blue Oyster Cult
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, and that's when I knew that you and I were friends for sure because very few millennials at all know what Blue Oyster Cult is, let alone
Yeah, yeah, probably heard "Don't Fear the Reaper" or something, but
yeah, but that's about it. So that they
it's
and
about
the only reason they know that was because of the cowbell sketch from SNL. So
SNL. Yeah,
um
it's true.
so before we sign off, so I posted your channel. Now you're not anywhere else besides you know YouTube
Uh,
or
I I am. I used to be pretty active on Twitter, but like you said before, I got banned out of the blue. I do have Parler. I don't use it that often, but it's the same handle as my YouTube. So
oh yeah, I should probably update my lower third here and tell people that I'm also on Parlor at
yeah.
Sam Whitfield. It took me forever to get verified on uh, there, but yeah, I'm on Parlor now too. I don't use it as much as I should, but
Mm.
um,
It was pretty clunky for me at the start. I think they've updated it quite a bit, and it's better now. So I'll try and get back into it. But there's, yeah, I didn't know you had it, so I'll find you on there too.
yeah, it's still a little clunky. I don't use it that much either. I do have a Telegram channel too. That's useful, but I'm not, you know, it seems to be a message board at this point too. So,
Yeah.
um, what Do you remember why you got banned from Twitter specifically, or?
No, I was never given a reason. I presume some people must have reported me because I used to get in arguments with lefties all the time. And it was, to be honest, I'm glad it happened because it was pretty unhealthy. There's no way you can change anybody's mind on Twitter. Everyone's just out to get each other. So I'm kind of glad that it happened. But basically, I tried to log in one day and they said, you're not old enough or something. You age restricted. So, okay. So I was like, there's something not right here. Go through the whole process. And essentially they said you need to scan government issued ID and send it to us so we can prove your age. And I said, no way, not doing it. That's where I draw the line. You are not having my ID. Because if I'm on your radar for being offensive or for being too conservative or right wing or whatever you want to call it, the last thing I want to do is give you vultures my fucking driver's license and my address. So I thought, fuck it, that's the end of my Twitter days, and not gone back since.
Yeah, the age restriction thing is weird, especially since, Twitter is one of like the only platforms, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, it is what it is, but that's like one of the only platforms where you can go on and you can literally see like porn gifs or something. And
yeah, so the age restriction I don't have a problem with, but I'd had that account for years and years and years, and there was no problem until I started becoming political in the wrong sense as far as they're concerned. And then one day it was like, oh, you're too young. I said, no, I'm not. And they said, okay, I'll prove it then. I said, okay, well, how do I do that? They said, well, give us some ideas. No, I'm not going to do it. No way. I don't want Jack Dorsey to have my government issued ID. I don't want the government to know where I live, let alone Jack Dorsey.
Yeah, it's bad enough that the government knows everything.
That's right.
So yeah,
spooky.
so yeah, very spooky. So very problematic. So
very problematic.
So,
big tech censorship, folks. Big problem.
Gonna threaten us all. So
they're gonna take your jobs.
Yeah.
Take away your First Amendment. Yeah. So fuck Twitter. I don't use that anymore.
Yeah, well,
the only social media I use really is Discord these days. I use Messenger on Facebook to keep up with some friends and stuff, but in terms of actual Facebook, very rare that I would go on there. I think it's debaucherous, most of the shit.
I'm on Facebook too. I mostly just follow. Follow people like family members and whatnot, and then like I have the show Facebook page, which I barely even manage that, but I mean I have it, so that's about it. But I mean other than that, yeah, you'll well, you know this, but folks will actually mostly find me on Discord and on Reddit, so anyway.
And your Discord server too.
Oh yeah,
you haven't promoted.
Oh yeah, you do. Well, that's because it's still under construction. Because I've been a lazy cripple and I haven't added any channels. So,
a lazy cripple.
So, yeah. So I mean, yeah, Jimmy. So Jimmy also helps run the he helps run the TWR Discord and the TWR Reddit too. So which is in the show.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to find out why you've got banned, it was probably me. I'm very sorry.
Yep.
Just kidding, folks.
So
just kidding. Just a joke.
We're gonna get Jimmy a run here on the channel too here at some point. So, but anyway, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, dude.
What time is it there now? It's gotta be like 9 something.
Yeah,
right?
it's about 9:13 right now.
Yeah.
So this is a good time for me. I know it was a bit early for you guys, but yeah, this is a good time because obviously, if it was going to go on for 2 hours and we started at midnight my time or something, it would have been a bit of a problem. So I appreciate you, taking time out of your day to invite me on, and we finally got there in the end. We got it done, and I am excited to come back on if you're willing to have me.
Absolutely. Well, especially now that I think we've let out the cat out of the bag that you're now helping run some stuff too. Now people know
Yeah.
who the British overlord lord is. So
I'm not quite an overlord. Don't scare them too much.
not
But yeah, no,
not
I'm glad to be a part of the Whitfield report for sure.
not yet,
Uh,
but Jimmy and I will be taking over. Jimmy and I will be taking over the internet soon. So
Watch this space, folks. We're gonna take over. It's gonna be great. Gonna be huge, folks.
we're gonna evict all the Spurgs and all the you know all the liberals. So yeah, but well, anyway, I want to thank you for coming on, and
Thank
you
you.
know, hopefully we'll have you on after the 31st. I think we're all kind of curious to know how Brexit will, turn out, and then next year is going to be interesting to
Yeah,
watch
for sure, for
with
sure.
the
It's gonna be the next 12 months are gonna be very, very, very interesting to say the least. Yeah.
so. So yeah, everyone go over and subscribe to Jimmy's channel. It's in the chat, and like I said, I'll post a link to that in the description later on. And I'll tell you what, Jimmy, if you weren't on anyone's radar before, you are now. So
Well, it
uh,
was bound to happen at some point.
apologies, but not really. So
No worries, dude.
all right, thanks for coming on, man. So
Thanks, dude. Take it easy.
and thanks to everyone who tuned in to the
And
podcast
of course, yeah. Thank you.
and yeah, I apologize for some of you. I know this was a bit early, so if you were expecting the 10 p.m. Time slot, I know that not
My
everyone
fault. Apologies.
I know that not everyone who usually tunes in was here, but I appreciate you guys watching this on the replay or on the podcast. However you're getting this, I still appreciate you listening and tuning in, and we'll do this again soon. So
Hmm.
anyway,
I
folks,
look forward to it, dude.
from all of us here at NGC Studios, have a good afternoon or a good evening. God bless, and God save this great nation, and God save the Queen also. So,
Thank you.
all right. Good night, folks, and God bless.